there's a formula, right? Like success, guys, is all based off formulas. And the formula that I just got from Tony is some agents, they will just go straight into educating the client when a client asks a question. It is not a bad thing, but an agent like a Tony G, the formula is going to be I need to get understanding and I need to get a better understanding on why this client is asking me this question. So the formula will be if a client asks me a question, I'm not really certain on why they're asking me that question. And guess what? Let me ask you a question and then I can educate. All right, guys, welcome back to another episode here with True Wealth on the Closers Academy. I'm here with my guy, Tony G, obviously, the man, the myth, the legend. And guys, I'm also here with my guy, Kendall Bradley, who's allowing for us to be able to do a call, review his call, and go over with. All right, Kendall, I know you've been in the space for a little bit of time. You just recently transitioned from face to face. After taking a little bit of time out of the industry, you got back in 3 years later. You was crushing it face to face, doing about $40,000 a month, and now you just went to your first full month doing phone sales. And last month you did a little close to $17,000 in AP, man, and I'm pretty impressed because I was only with two carries as well. The fact that you allow for us to review your call on this setting, I'm definitely appreciative. All right, guys, we're gonna hop straight into it, okay? So that way we can get into the meat and potatoes. All right. Let me know if you guys can hear my recording. Hear the recording.
Hey, I'm still here. Okay. All right. So you said it was December of last year. And did you find out if it was a term or whole life? Uh, no, I forgot. If it's a term, I just want to know what the time frame is on it. You know what I mean? Has anyone ever explained to you the difference between term and whole life? Uh, the lady that I was talking to, she kind of did, but I kind of forgot. Okay. I'll give you a little refresher. So there's two main types of life.
All right. So my question is, it looks like she has a policy in place, right? Just to kind of get context, she has insurance in place right now. You asked her if she has a term or a whole life, and I think she's trying to figure out if what she has, all right?
Correct.
And then you came in and you asked her a second question, which was, do you understand the difference between term and whole life, right? Now,
Mhm.
the only thing I would say is be a little bit more patient with her when she is trying to figure out what she has, right? I probably wouldn't have brought up the difference between term and whole life in that particular instance, just simply because I'm trying to figure out what she has in place. Tony, do you have anything you were thinking
Yeah,
about
I
on
was
that end?
yeah, I was the same thing. I was confused on where we were in the presentation at this point with that coming up so early. But if we're further in, then I guess it's more appropriate. But I wouldn't. I personally never ask the clients, is it whole life or term? Because they don't know.
Hmm.
And everybody who does, they explain it to you, and you're like, nope, you get that wrong. So it gives you that's why the question, I love the question. Has anybody ever taken the time to explain the difference? That's a fantastic question to make you the authority if it's at the appropriate time. I don't know where we are in the presentation yet,
Yeah.
but it's a great
Yeah, yeah,
question.
it does sound like, is this still the discovery, I imagine? The stakes, Kendall, this part of the presentation here?
Yeah, so this is kind of like the beginning stages of the stakes. I had talked
Okay.
to her the day before this, and so I'm trying to reset the table almost because I called her at the doctor's office. Doctor had just walked in when I had kind of started the discovery, so just trying to figure out a way to kind of reset that table and get things moving.
Understood. Okay, perfect. Thanks for that context too. All right,
Mhm.
let's go ahead and play it.
Life insurance you can get when you're looking at these options here. One is term, one's whole life. Term is just short for terminate, and it just simply means that you're covered for a period of time, usually 10, 20, or 30 years at the most. And at the end of that, 10, 20, or 30 years, whatever that term may be, the policy ends up terminating and you lose all the money you paid into it. Um, the main purpose behind these policies is to secure your financial obligations for that period of time that you want. So sometimes if you got like a 30-year mortgage, you might want a 30-year term just in case something happens before the house is paid off. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whole life, on the other hand, is permanent coverage. It covers you your entire life from start to finish, and it doesn't time out on you. So it's a what's called a promise to pay. Um, you don't have to worry about paying into it and losing it or having to worry about dying within a specific time frame. I've been doing this for a very long time, Ms. Laquita, and just kind of looking at the comparison between, the coverage amount that you said you have and how much you're paying for it, and especially at your age, I'd be willing to bet my life that this is a term. I just don't know how long that term is. You know what I mean?
Fine. Just it might be. Oh, guys. It says maturity date December 1st, 2105.
2105.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tony put in there his whole life. So the maturity date, for you guys don't know, when someone's doing a policy review, the maturity date is essentially when that having a brain fart on it, but it's essentially when that policy will mature, meaning when it will quote unquote cancel, right? Over a period of time. So if the maturity date is 2105, that means she's covered to 2105. It's 2026 to give you guys a time frame. So that's a long time. All right. That policy is not canceling out. Okay. Now, when it comes to this here, because it sounds like you're going through, we got the recording in the midst of doing a policy review. One thing that I love to do is, well, before I go into that, one thing I'm going to share is this, Kendall, is that people are not going to believe what we say until we essentially tell them or help them know that we actually care about them. You know what I mean? So what I would do is I would reframe this entire thing, right? I would reframe it. I will come in, I'll say, hey, Miss Laquita, I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And normally what I typically see happening is a lot of people's policies end up going up in price over the years, and they think they have a whole life policy and they don't. Let me ask you a quick question. Has your premiums ever gone up in price on you at all throughout the years since you've had this policy? Right? Like if I restructure it that way, it gives me the ability now to know if they have a term life or a whole life or not, because I know that the price is going to go up. Versus me coming in and saying, hey, do you have a term life or a whole life? Like Tony said, they probably are not aware. But if I reframe it in a way where I say, hey, I've been doing this for a little bit of time, and what I see happening most is a lot of people think they have a whole life policy, but in reality, they may end up having a term. Let me ask you a quick question. Has your premium ever gone up in price over the last few years since you've had it? Right? Tony, how would you kind of address that situation with the client there?
Yeah, it's a this is all I'm going to say to Kendall is you went on a really dangerous slope and then slid off because you're like, man, I'll bet my life and it's that it's a term and it's not a term. So now your professionalism, your authority is out the window. So, and I'm not telling everybody to be scared because I'm the guy that says quit trying to know everything about everything. That doesn't mean. But if we're going to start asking questions and you're going to go out on a limb and try and use your authority, it's got to be seamless and you've got to be 100% sure. So if you're not 100% sure, and that one thing, as soon as she said, here's the maturity date, that's on all whole life policies. Just so you know, if you want to say something sharp to your client, if she makes it to that point, which that ain't happening, but if she makes it to that point, it pays her. She outlived the policy at that point. So that's all great, but at this point, you went too far into it as far as going around the corner. I like your pacing is nice and slow, and you're nice and easy, and your tonality is good, and everything else. And I wrote that down here. I was like, it's all good, and then
Yeah.
the timing isn't where it should be, because your tone is where it is, and because your pacing is slow. Some clients are going to be like, okay, how long am I going to be on the freaking phone? This guy's when we just started talking, and he's going into, you know, he's going to train me now on insurance. I ain't got time for this, and
Yeah.
they're going to click out. Just get the prices. So when you use the word I, and this I'll be done with this one. When you use the word I, and you start saying things, that will always subconsciously turn your client off. This is where Jalen was going. You got to get them. You got to extract it from them. They have to say it's a term where I don't know, or this is what it is. because you're going to lead them in the direction where they have to say, yeah, whole life is the best answer. That's the best angle I need to have. That's the best product I need to have.
Correct. Exactly. Yeah. And I will say this too. This is what separates somebody from being transactional, from someone who just is not, right? I don't know the different word for it, right? A transactional salesman is going to try to go super deep into someone's plan, and that's what they're going to sell them on. They're going to sell them on the fact that I bet that's a term life policy. I bet that's going to go up in price on you. I bet that's going to happen. But none of that stuff really matters if we don't know why the client truly requested information at the end of the day, right? Like, do I want to get that information? Yes, of course. But I don't want that to be the overall thing that I'm selling on. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want to sell them on the fact that that is a term life policy. I can get you a whole life policy. I want us to be able to sell them on the fact that whatever they said their issue is. You see what I mean? Whatever they expressly say that their issue is, I want to sell them on that. Because here's the truth of the matter. Even if this client gets down to the end and I end up finding out, let's say their final expenses are taken care of, right, Kendall? And they're like, no, my final expenses are all taken care of. I'm good. But I do have this mortgage though, and they're 45 years old, and I just crapped on term life. But they requested information, even though it was a final expense form, but they requested information about mortgage protection. I just crapped on term life and they qualify for term, but they want their mortgage paid for. Now it's going to be hard for me to go back and say, well, term life is incredible. So that's why I never lead with the term life, the whole life, things of that nature. I'm going to ask certain questions to figure out what type of plan they have up front, but I am not going to make that the overarching part of my sales process. I have to figure out what brought them on the call, right? What brought them on the call? Was it because they experienced a funeral that caused them to want to think about this, right? Was it because they experienced a health scare? I have to figure that out. It might be, yeah, Jalen, I filled this form out for final expenses because even though all that's paid for, but in reality, I do have a mortgage that I'm concerned about. So I want to be able to figure out what is the actual reason why they requested information. I don't want to keep it transactional. Does that make sense?
That is a fantastic point too. I was thinking the same thing, which again, that's just you start doing this long enough, it all kind of blends together. That when you start throwing off on one product before you know what's going on, it's going to bite you. Great point, Jalen.
100%. Yeah. All right. Let's keep playing it.
2005 is the
Year.
oh, gotcha. 21. Okay, maybe in
That's a nonsense. Yeah.
What was she paying for the policy and how much coverage did she have that made you kind of think it was term?
She had about 250 in coverage, and then it was 103. She was late 40s, almost 50 years old, and she had just got it back in December of last year.
250. Yeah, that might be IUL for sure. That definitely sounds something.
She said it was with Moose, so it could have been like in their
Express,
UL Express. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So with this policy in place, obviously you've got coverage on yourself, but you said you were also looking for additional coverage on yourself. What would that additional coverage be for, from your perspective?
Not so much as additional coverage for me. I wanted to get coverage on the family.
Gotcha. Okay, for your children and then your spouse.
Yes.
Gotcha. Well, for your spouse, I would need to speak to your spouse to get a good gauge and figure out what's the best fitting for your spouse. But we'd have to schedule some time to discuss that. But for your children, if how young are they?
It's one's about to be 19, the other one is about to be 15.
Okay, so for the minor, you can do everything. You can answer all the questions, for the minor. For the adult, same deal. I'd have to ask him, we at least just have to speak with him. We're just required to ask the questions and make sure that they answer honestly, and also get the authorization for your insurable interest on them. But for your baby, you said 15?
Yes, he's about to be 15. He's 14 right now. He'll be 15 in October.
15 October. All right. Well, we can definitely look at some options for him specifically. I imagine.
Okay.
What's that?
Cut you off. Quick question.
Mhm.
Is there not like, what am I trying to say? One that's like, that will cover the whole family instead of paying all these different. Like mine is 103, and I have to pay a different one for my son, a different for my daughter, a different one for my husband. That's like too much.
Right. No, I understand. And that is very frustrating. But unfortunately, when it comes to life insurance, each life is insured individually. So if you think about you, it's going to be secured to your age, health, social security, driver's license, all that stuff. And all of that stuff is going to be different for every individual, even your youngest child. So unfortunately, there isn't going to be, a policy out there that will say, hey, we'll cover your whole family for one policy. They're unfortunately, it's just frustrating. They'll all have to be different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's gonna be way too much.
Well, the pricing doesn't have to be, they don't, because you probably.
All right, so I'm gonna pause it here really quick. There's two things I want to address. The first thing I want to address is the very first thing when she came and said, "Hey, yeah, I want to get insurance on me and my family." This is where we can open it up from going from being transactional to really figuring out what the actual heck the need is. So my question is, okay, so you're looking to get insurance on your family. Tell me more about that. What got you thinking about that? I need to know, right, early on, why are you looking for insurance for you and your family? Like, what happened? Because right now, a lot of facts are being told, but there's no connection being built in terms of why she actually requested information, right? Like that's what I need to figure out. I need to figure out what is the bottom line on why you filled this form out. Because right now, Kendall, all we're doing right now is we're sharing a whole bunch of facts, 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 and her guards are starting to go up, I see. Like I can see it happening. Her guards are going up. When she's like, wait, stop real quick. Like she tried to take control back and you allowed for her to, right? Because right now it seems like it's just going in circle. Like there's it's not going in a clear direction. Tony, you got something?
I'm spot on. We're exactly on the same page because as soon as I actually unmuted as soon as she asked that question, but I wanted to let you finish your point there. But my the first thing went through my mind is why is she even having to ask that question?
Mm-hmm.
It should have been turned. It should have never gotten to a point where she's like, wait, let me ask you something. So that means she's got zero into this presentation. She's not connected. She's not feeling it. She wants no part of it. And the more you're talking, and you're saying again, your things you're saying, though correct, you're like, I don't even think this is a square peg in a round hole. This is like a star shape trying to go into a circle. It's not, it ain't fitting. she wants no part of it. And so that I would have started. I'm going to go way back to when you first said she had a $250,000 policy or whatever the case is, and had that. When you found that out, the question at that point is, what is that policy covering?
Mm-hmm.
What is it for? What is it doing? And you want to get her talking about her plan so that, to Jalen's point, this isn't a transaction. And the more she speaks, it's going to be an obvious question when she gets doing that. It's saying, so what's got us speaking today? Sounds like you got everything taken care of.
Take
What's
away
got
the
us talking?
sale.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then she's going to explain what we're talking about now, but now she's explaining it, not asking you, well, so can you do this? Because that's basically what she's saying. I want this. Can you do it? Yes or no? And when you go, well, we're not really going to do it. Yeah, all right. And Jalen's saying, all right, you can already feel it's doing this. She's like, all right, I got to get off the phone. You can hear it. Kendall, can you hear that? I mean, can you hear her voice going, she wants out?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, man, that's so good. That's so good, Tony. I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it back up. I should have brought that up earlier when she told she had the coverage. But yes, that's a great point man, if someone has a $250,000 policy, they're paying 103 a month for it, right? I don't want to try to crap on that policy. I don't want to crap on it because we haven't built the relationship for me to crap on it yet, right? I want to say, well, Miss Betty, it looks like you have a $250,000 policy. I mean, you just recently got that. You're paying 103 a month. I mean, that sounds like enough coverage to me. What's making you feel like it's not enough? And then she's going to respond back and say, well, Kendall, A, B, C, D. She's going to give you the reasons. And those three reasons, whatever reason she give you, is going to be your bait. And you're going to attack all three of those reasons one at a time. Make sense? So let's say, for instance, she says, well, I think I'm overpaying. Okay, that's one reason. The second thing she says, well, I think that I just don't have enough to be able to leave behind to my children because that's another thing, right? I'm attacking all those three of those reasons at the by itself. But
Makes sense.
the reason why it's so transactional right now, like Jason had just put in the comments, it's a lot of education going on, but there's not enough stakes being built throughout the call, throughout the conversation. Okay. Now, the second thing I wanted to point out too is this. When a client comes back and says, well, can they put a policy in place for all their family on one policy? Now, Kendall and everybody else that's listening, they can. They can. There's riders and stuff like that for them. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because um, I would have told the client that it is a possibility. Because the one thing I don't want to have happen is she go on ChatGPT and say, is it possible for me and my family to get one put on one policy? And then ChatGPT says, yes, you can. And then she calls you back and cancels the policy because now in her mind, she's like, well, Kendall lied to me. He said he's a professional. He said he was authoritative. He know everything, but he said that cannot happen. So I would have done this in this instance. I would say, absolutely, you can, Miss Betty. Here's why most people don't do that and why I will advise you not to do that. The reason being is because if I were to have you have a policy and I put all your children and your husband as a rider on this policy, Lord forbid something happened to you, their policies would be canceled. So most people, they typically just get insured by themselves simply because they want their spouses and their children to be covered for for the rest of their life. You see what I'm saying? I'm reframing it and reframing her mind to not want that type of policy simply because it's not in the best interest of the family. Because if something happens to one, especially the primary, the owner of the plan, the other ones may not be covered for the rest of their life.
And here's a real quick question that you can ask of everybody. It's always a how question. How did you come to that, or what's got you thinking about that type of policy? That's where that whole thing, what Jalen's doing, Jalen's rounding second, third, and going home. But for the rest of you that are going, how do I even get there? You got to get her talking about it. We got to figure out what's even got her thinking about this. This is the whole presentation is inverted. The more we go into this, I'm like, this should have been over here. This should have been here. This should have been here. That should have been at the very, 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 very beginning of, what kind of policy you got, what's got you thinking that's not enough, where it's going. That she's going to bring up the family thing. And so, okay, well, what's got you looking into a policy like that? She may go because there's a certain carrier out there that, I shouldn't say carrier. Well, I guess they are a company. That's what they sell, is that whole idea of, oh, you just get both of you on one policy and it's cheaper and you don't have whole life. You don't do this on and on. If she's talking, that's typically, they only go within their friends and family. So if her cousin has come to her, who she knows, and says, oh yeah, I'm going to put you two on this policy. She's like, yeah, I don't really trust my cousin. And you go over here and go, you can't even do that. She already knows it can be done. And now you're like 3 levels under the ocean at this point. There's no recovering from this, because what you're saying, she knows not to be true. But asking her what's got us thinking, what's got us in this position, why are we talking, what's wrong with that policy, there's 100 questions you can be asking instead of trying to overcome. You're looking at every time she brings something up that you have to overcome the objection. This is just generally a sales training for everybody. If they say something, it is not your job to overcome the objection, because that makes it this. It's why you think, without using the word why. In your mind, you're going, why are they thinking that? Why are they thinking that? That's what you have to extract out. What's got us talking? What's got you looking at that kind of a policy? Sounds like you've done some research. I mean, anything to get them talking.
Yeah, no, that's really, really good. And the scripture that comes to my mind, Tony, when it comes to what you were just talking about is and all that getting get understanding, right? And all that getting get understanding. There's a formula, right? Like success, guys, is all based off formulas, and the formula that I just got from Tony, and it's like all sales agents do it. Is an agent, some agents, they will just go straight into educating the client when a client asks a question. It is not a bad thing, but an agent like a Tony G, the formula is going to be, I need to get understanding and I need to get a better understanding on why this client is asking me this question, right? So the formula will be, if a client asks me a question, and I'm not really certain on why they're asking me that question, then guess what? Let me ask you a question, and then I can educate. So I can ask a question to get a better understanding, and then I can educate, right? That would be the formula that I just picked up from Tony. Somebody asked me a question, and I want better understanding on that. Let me ask a question to get the reasoning on why you asked me this question, and then I can educate you properly on it, right? Because if people, remember this, people want to know that the person that they're talking to is making them feel heard, valued, and seen. Heard, valued, and seen. So if I were to come back and ask that question that Tony asked, now that makes the client interested more in Tony because he asked the question, well, what got you thinking about that? What makes you ask that question? I mean, you've been obviously doing some research on this. You're brilliant. And then she's gonna respond back and say, well, Tony, to be honest, I start looking at all this on YouTube. And now he has a better understanding on why she's asking the question, and then he can properly educate her. But now she's more open to have a conversation because Tony made it more conversational.
Like on top of a biblical principle, which it is. It's also in a book, Stephen Covey's Seven Habits. And the overarching issue is understand before you try to be understood. So it's a biblical principle, but even though he's not, well, never mind, I won't go into that stuff. But that book is good for you to just learn how to speak with people as a whole. And I'm not going to add any more to it because Jalen nailed it completely.
Drop
about
that book.
Understanding them.
Drop that book in the channel. Understand before you can be understood. I'm not sure what book that is, but if you can drop that.
That's the principle. The book is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
All right, let's keep playing. We got a couple more minutes.
You're probably assuming that they're all going to be about 100, 103 apiece. That's just not the case because each person is different. Each person's price is different as well. And that's really my job is to, ask some questions, look under the hood for a little bit and see which carriers have the best options and also which ones have the best that fit your budget. So that's really the purpose of this call is to figure out which ones are going to be best fitting for your family as a whole. At this time, what we can take a look at is some options for your youngest child. And honestly, since he's only 14, about to be 15, I mean, there's going to be very, very inexpensive rates available to him.
All right, so there's like this common trend. Common trend is, do you see, Kendall, how it's like very transactional, very transactional, right? You're using terminology like inexpensive. The primary purpose of this is to figure out what's best for your family. But in her mind, she's like, very transactional. So when you say that, it's like, okay, what does that mean? Like, is it ultimately about just finding the best policy as far as price point for the client? Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of where it's coming off when it comes to this. That's the second thing I want to kind of point out really quick is you're a very confident man. I know that. Very confident. I need you to speak with more confidence on these phone calls because right now it sounds like you're trying to find your footing and find your place when it comes to speaking to the client. You have to be able to talk like you know it, like you know it, like you know it. Even if you say the wrong thing, right? Ask for forgiveness later. But you got to be able to talk with like that confidence. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Miss Betty, look what we're going to do today. The purpose of this call today is really going to be able to help you design the best plan for you and your family, right? And if you're coming off based off what you're saying, transactional, it needs to be more confident because people pick up on tone and they pick up on energy. You know what I'm saying? And people want to work with people who know exactly where the hell they're going. You know what I mean? And who can lead them to where they want to go. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I was listening to that over the last few minutes, with your tone and how you're saying it and things of that nature. I need you to come in and boom, like really be more confident in what you're sharing. But it sounds like you're trying to find your footing. You're trying to figure out what the need is. And the reason why you're trying to figure out why you're having an issue by figuring out what the need is because you're still being in the transactional category here. And you know, based on what she told you, she's paying 103 for 250,000. You're not finding her a better policy than that. So you're trying to find your way around it by trying to save money. For me, I don't care what she's paying for the freaking policy. I'm trying to figure out what is the need on why I'm on the phone with you if you have a $250,000 policy and you're paying 103 a month. I'm trying to figure out what is the internal need that's driving you to request more information when you just put a policy in place last week. Does that make sense? These are different conversations. So I don't have to find my footing when I'm coming from that angle. You with me? All right.
Gotcha.
Because life insurance, they usually price based on age and health. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Now, assuming
He's out.
is something-
That response right there.
James.
James. If something were to happen to James prior to something happening to you, I'd imagine you and your spouse would be the one taking on that financial loss, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the final expenses mainly. And then also, I'm not a parent, but I'd imagine that when I do become a parent here in the future, if I lost a child, I would need some extra money to get me through however long I need to take off work.
Right.
So I always recommend that for clients as well, not just the final expenses.
All right. So what I'm seeing here is you're getting into the internal need now. This should have came first, right? But you're telling her why she needs it versus actually allowing for her to respond,
Mm.
right? You're like, I'm not a parent. However, if I was a parent, I will want this. Well, Tony G's a parent, and there's other parents on the line, but their needs are still different,
hmm
right? That's just their desires are different as parents. Okay. One thing that I always try to stay away from too, I learned this years ago, is I never want to speak from a position that I don't hold. Right. So if I'm not a parent, I'm not going to say anything about being a parent. What I can say though is I can speak from the perspective of a child. Hey, Miss Betty, as a child, it would be very difficult on myself if my mother was to leave a financial burden behind to me. That hits home because she has children
hmm
versus me trying to speak from a place of being a parent when I'm not a parent. It automatically causes the client to disconnect from them because they're like, well, you're not a parent. Make sense? So I wanted to hit on that.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
So in this context, when you're trying to basically pull from her exactly the question or exactly what I said with the statement, how would you reframe that as a question to get that from her?
Which specific question? I forget the question. Sorry.
The statement that I made about, having enough money not just to cover the funeral costs, but also enough money to get them through the time off work. How would you turn that into a question to get her to say it?
Yeah, I'll just simply ask the question. Okay, so you have $250,000 policy now, Miss Betty. What's making you feel like that's not enough to cover everything, like your final expenses and everything that you are needing? I'll just ask the question. What makes you feel like that's not enough?
I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. What I mean is like she's talking about getting coverage on her son, her youngest son. He's 15, and she was talking about just getting enough to cover the final expenses. And obviously, you pay for a funeral and then you got to go back to work the next day because you don't have enough money to take off work. How do you kind of paint that picture and get her to say that without kind of what I did there, which was just give it to her?
If her concern is making sure her son is covered and he passes away, my question would just simply be, okay, you're looking at getting some insurance on your son. Why is that important to you? All right. Something along those lines. Why is that important to you? What's making you feel like you need to do that today? Something in those instances.
Yeah,
something like that.
I'm just gonna give
keep it simple. Okay.
Yeah, I got two quick examples. I have a woman who's same thing. I'm talking to the mom. She's like, I just want to get on my kid. We started chatting and everything else. I said, so what's got you thinking that you need to have coverage on your, he might have been 16 or 17, which is late. Normally, if you get on your kids, you do it when they're young, you know, when they're 2, 3, 4 years old or whatever, you start thinking about it and you put something on. I'm like, what's guys thinking? And she went into their neighborhood, kind of people he's hanging around. You never know. She's already lost a nephew and all this stuff and goes into that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, so this is an actual death benefit. She's actually concerned her kid's going to be hanging out with the wrong people and he's going to get shot, period. That's totally different from another client of mine that I'm like, hey, what's got you thinking about this? And, you know, he's 14, all this stuff. Well, we never got it. And she said it. We never got it when he was younger. And been thinking about it. And I'm looking at, you know, stuff that I say to clients, if you look at the obesity rate and the health rate and everything else, this next generation coming up it's the first generation. It's not going to be healthier than the generation in front of them. And they're like, yeah. She said that to me. It's like, I'm looking around and going, man, and somebody said something, this is what she said, that if I put insurance on them, then they could always at least have it. I'm like, you're hired. You know, I make a joke about it. You got it. You know, I don't have to train you. That's exactly why you need to have insurance on children. We don't want to think about burying them. If we do, that's covered. That's great. But we want to make sure they're insurable. I mean, and I tell a story about a friend of mine whose kid got leukemia at like 14, and now for the rest of her life, she can never get insurance because she had it so young and all that good stuff. So you've got to dig deeper into those questions. Just instead of going, okay, she said something, now I'm going to respond. If anything else, say, well, what's got you thinking that? What's got you thinking that? What's got you feeling that this isn't enough? What's got you feeling that you got to have coverage on your kid? What's, you know, something along those lines to extract those kind of questions out. And then if she says that, okay, fine. How you know, a lot, this is what I would say especially in your situation, a lot of my clients like to have a little extra because nobody wants to go running right back to work, and then just leave it there as a statement.
100%.
And let her say that, then she can correct you if it's wrong.
Indeed. Yeah. You only use assumptive language based off the words that they say, not off of things that we think. You know, like if she were to if you ask that question, well, what's making you want to get insurance on your son now is 15? And she's like, well, because we grew up and he's in a bad neighborhood. He's hanging out with a whole bunch of knuckleheads and his friends are getting killed left and right. That's deep. Right? That's just a simple question. Assumptive language would be this instance. And again, I will dive deeper into that, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to use assumptive language. I will say something along the lines later on. Gotcha. So what I'm hearing, Ms. Betty, right? If my assumption is correct, you're afraid that, Lord forbid, if your son keeps hanging out with these same knuckleheads that's getting killed off, you're concerned that your son might end up having an accident that's unexpected, which is why you are requesting information from us today. That's assumptive language, but I use what she told me. I'm not coming out of thin air assuming her responses. That's the difference when we talk about assumptive language. Does that make sense? Cool. Now, guys, there's plenty of recording left on here. The question is, Kendall, were you able to close her?
No, as Tony probably assumed.
I was gonna say, man, if he did, we need to switch this training completely around, and that guy needs to be doing training, because there's nothing I've heard in this call saying, "Yo, yeah, let's go ahead and sign up for a policy." I'm like, dude, you are the master.
I think we could probably have known where this call has went just based off our experience. But man, the fact that you came on this call, you allowed for us to get this recording, man. What are some takeaways that you received before we conclude that you're going to start implementing today?
First thing is, I think it's really important to listen back to your recordings. Like I have a lot of recordings that I'd never actually heard myself walk through it. And it's interesting to hear, you know, how I sound. Like you said, the confidence, I can hear that on the other side when I'm not speaking. So that's huge. Understand before you try to be understood, I think stands out the most. I think that's not just a sales thing. I think that's something I could even apply in my life. That'll go a long way. And then, you know, great questions to ask, like, why is this important? You know, what kind of really digging deeper, not being transactional. I think, you know, I've spent a lot of time as an agent being transactional, and it's definitely over the last 3 weeks with you guys is something that I'm learning to unlearn. And it's been a pleasure to go through this process and unlearn all of these things. But I still think that that one can be closed, because what happened with this one specifically is we end up doing all 3 applications for her husband, and her 2 kids. Got all the information, and she needed to get the banking information because the I guess bank statement that she had, it was like kind of blurred out. And so we scheduled some time to be back to do that. And so there's still a possibility, but to answer your question, no, it did not close.
Absolutely. No, definitely appreciate you, man, for sending over your call recordings, man. One thing I do appreciate and adore about you, man, is that you're very coachable, you're humble, and I know that if you did 17,000 last month, you know, I'm pretty certain that if you just make these small tweaks and adjustments, this month is going to be way more incredible for you, man. So let's continue to keep working on our craft, showing up every single day, and getting 1% better every single day, man. And I'm excited to see where you end up in the month of June. All right.
Yeah.
Tony, any final words or anything for Kendall before we conclude?
Same thing. I'm super impressed, and you obviously you're coachable, because you wouldn't be doing this and wouldn't have volunteered for it, sat through it, and took it like a champ the whole time. You know, we were shredding you the whole time. So it's going to be 17 a week before long, not 17 a month. Good job.
100%. Absolutely. Well, guys, that concludes our call for today. If you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Share this with somebody who needs to get to that next level, and you know that they need the support and help. And guys, when you do so, we'll see you guys at the top. All right. Take care. Love you guys.